Morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world enjoying this conversation at a later date. My name is Raneem and I'm joined by Ahmad and Lalić, a Serbian Australian-based musician and visual artist who has consistently dazzled the minds of fans for about 9 years, with a total of 7 exceptionally displayed records released in a 5.5 year period. Lalić has found a tool of expression through music and artistic pieces that pleasantly shuns you with a realm of thoughts and feelings you never thought was possible. Lalić's newest release, Postmortal Gothic, stands to be one of the best records in modern experimental psychedelia that I've ever had the pleasure of listening to.
To preface the incredible amount of interest and curiosity, we were introduced to your music somewhat recently, and we were dumbfounded by not only the way your music was able to unfold parts of ourselves we met for the first time, but by the sheer amount of music you've released since your debut album, Broken Foot Rabbit Hole, was released. This obviously resulted in a deep dive into your tuneful individuality, and we couldn't help but be fascinated by the way you found your artistic identity, raising lots of questions about the way you carry yourself and your unique mystical character.
I want to thank you for taking the time to join us and sharing a conversation with our curious minds. So, how are you and how are things in Australia at the moment?
That was a beautiful intro. Wow. My heart is just so full. That was so beautiful. And yeah, wow.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's fine here. You know, I mean, Australians are complaining a lot, but they don't really understand what pain is. You know what I mean? Like, if anything happens here, they all just fucking freak out. So there's a lot of hysteria, particularly amongst people that grew up here their whole lives. But a lot of people that are from other places are a bit more calm. You know what I mean?
It's part of the charm. Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So how did you get into music? What was your childhood like? I'm interested in the environment and like the atmosphere that surrounded you and how you dealt through personal obstacles in reaching your current position.
Yeah. Well, one part of it is that the village that I'm from in Serbia is called Guča, and it's in some ways like the home of Serbian brass folk. There's a very rich musical tradition there. But both my parents' families, I don't know, weren't super affluent or whatever. But I started playing music when I saw the School of Rock.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just, I was actually reflecting on this the other day. I mean, look, part of it was I just felt this intense pressure as a young first generation immigrant. Like, from a very young age, it was very clear that my family, we'd gone through a lot just for me to be able to achieve things. And I think
sacrifice.
Yeah. And I felt that immense pressure from like the moment that we got here. And I think I remember just like seeing that movie, and I mean, I was 10, so I don't know how developed, my thinking was, but it was just kind of like, that's something that I think I can do.
I see. It comes 360 because yesterday was Jack Black's birthday. So
really?
This is all coming together. Yeah, it's amazing.
I feel like
regarding your newest album, by the way, congratulations. It's incredible. I listened to the full length Postmortal Gothic. I noticed on bandcamp.com on your account, you made a comment under the album, which intrigued me quite a lot. You mentioned that the album was dedicated to your father. So I wanted to ask, what type of relationship did you have with him throughout your life, and how big of a role did he play in it?
Yeah, so he passed away about 8 months ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thanks. I had a very deep relationship to my dad. A lot of it was this kind of like cultural ancestral thread, that, I mean, he was very reluctant to assimilate to Australia, you know what I mean? And he was very proud of his culture, and he would tell me the history, and he would tell me what we went through to get to where we were, and he would tell me about, the bad things and the good things and everything, but it was this kind of like, it was like, I mean, there's a lot of things I could say, but I would say, like, to wrap it up, I would say that he taught me morality, I just say, you know, like, I mean,
Wow.
you know, it was like very simple from a young age. It was like, you don't eat if your neighbor's hungry. You know what I mean? Like things like that, that are
Ah,
just
wow. Yeah.
very, just
They're
like,
instilled from you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think that that kind of ancestral connection and cultural connection, the whole thing was very much like, we're gears, you know, and this is
I
one
see.
thing. And it's like, you are, it's, everything is you, you know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's your job to leave the world better than the way you found it. Exactly. Yeah, that's
Well, it's like,
perfect.
it's your world. You are the world. You know, this is
Oh, I
the
see.
only world is the three of us looking at each other right now. You know what I mean?
I
Like
love the
nothing
way
else.
that, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's perfect. I like the way that you think about it. It's so nice and it feels heartwarming. Make sure
Yeah.
like you're not thinking about anything else. It's just the moment and us three talking to each other about something that we love. It's incredible.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of growing up and how your father has an influence on you, a part of growing up is obviously going through puberty and the teenage phase. So I'm sure you know of a little thing called teenage angst and a
Yeah.
struggle to find your identity, or what you could call your personal knobs or buttons that really describe who you are.
Yeah.
And we all, in some ways, are trying to figure out who we are and are in a constant state of self-reflection that sometimes leaves us wondering what type of reality we're really in and how our experiences can make us truly unique.
Yeah.
So I'm very fascinated by the way you seem to have found yourself in a way that others might not be able to. And although it's a never ending quest of self actualization, there comes a point in someone's life where one is comfortable with the person that they perceive to be themselves in the mirror every morning.
Yeah.
So, what type of experiences did you have through your childhood or let's say teenage life that you think were profound in making you the type of person that you are today?
First of all, being an immigrant in Australia, I had an accent. My name rhymes with Bin Laden. You know, like, you know, I had the wrong shoes, and I hadn't
Ah,
seen the cartoons, and I mean, like, from the moment that we got here, and this was again echoed through my family's experience as well. Like, my dad was a very accomplished scientist, and he would come home from work and be like, "These people treat me like an idiot because I have an accent." You know what I mean? Like, I'm smarter than
I
all of them
see.
put together, but none of them take me seriously. Just he just couldn't believe it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I had that very much same experience in school. So I went through this kind of like shift where it's like, so as I was growing up, it was super important to me, like when I was a kid, that I was Serbian and not Australian. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Because I felt like I knew Serbian, you know what I mean? If I was
yes.
Serbian, that was an identity that I could, we went to church and it was, you know, there and like all that kind of stuff. Whereas, and if I was an Australian, all that I would really feel was that I wasn't a good enough Australian. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
wow. Wow. That's an
And so it
interesting
was
way to
just
think
kind of like,
about
I
it.
can't even pretend to play along with you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's better for me to just kind of opt out. And I'll just say that, like, so there's this shift that happened. It's really relevant that you brought up teenage angst, because I think that there was a moment I rebelled against all of that. You know what I mean? And
Ah,
I suddenly was like, oh, you know what? Like, oh, like I started reading about, I don't know, like the Balkan Wars, and I started getting into like all this kind of, you know, political
wow.
stuff, and also kind of like getting into all this, and started kind of breaking away from that. Also finding myself within this kind of Australian place, right? Trying to
Ah,
find
I
that,
see.
and kind of like entering adulthood in this idea that like, okay, like it or not, I'm here. And if I'm going to be an adult, I need to really participate. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really nice. It's like no matter what, you're gonna be there. So might
Yeah.
as well make the most out of it.
Yeah. And
Do
I'll
you
just say
feel,
one thing is that
yeah,
through that gave the moment where I suddenly realized I'm Serbian. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
truly
Like
Serbian?
that's
Yes,
when
yeah,
I could really embrace that fully. When
mhm,
I was like, I'm Serbian and I'm here and I have a right to be here.
yes,
You know what I mean? Kind of thing. I mean,
absolutely.
as much as anyone has a right to be on this land, which
Yeah.
unless you're indigenous, you don't. You know, so
Oh, yeah, that's true.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's like really, really inspirational because then like you go through all this like discrimination and but then you realize that at the end of the day like you are your roots, you know. You're like
Yeah.
no matter what you try to do, no matter what you try to change, you are your roots. I think that's
Yeah.
very nice. Yeah.
And we're blessed by our roots.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean?
Mm,
Like people who don't have that, I can't imagine that. You know what I mean? And they have a hard time. They're the people sailing around the world, fucking burning everyone down because they
mm,
don't know who they are and what they want.
that's
You know
true.
what I mean?
The identity crisis. It's almost like a mass identity crisis that
Yeah,
everyone's feeling at the same time.
yeah.
Do you feel the fact that you lived in Australia and you experienced those things in school, where let's say you got discriminated against in school, or you felt like you were an outsider, and you really like looked into yourself and where you came from? Do you really think ultimately you became more Serbian than you would have been if you lived in Serbia?
This is something that I think about constantly.
Wow.
What would happen if I had stayed in Serbia? What kind of person would I be? You know, would I, you know, and this is like some maybe where it's like gets a bit dicey, but it's like, would I be queer? Would I have realized my own queerness if I'd stayed there? Because I look in the village, right? And I'm like, okay, all of these boys are just kind of like rude, crude men, you know what I mean? Like really just kind of like
Yeah.
the kind of thing that in a modernized society might be really kind of jarring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so my first thing is like, do I really think I'm so much better than all of them that, like, you know what I mean? Like if I was
Mm.
there, that I wouldn't just be as they are. And the second thing is, do I think that they're bad people, or are they just in a,
I
you know what I
see.
mean? Like if they were in my circumstance, I bet they'd be doing the same thing. So I think that really grounds me, you know, in a way, but I don't have an answer to that question. I think about it every day.
Wow. I think it might be the exposure. If they've never been exposed to it and it's not even a thought in their minds, then it might not go through them. Or I guess it's never really been something that they might explore because they know the repercussions that might come about
Yeah.
if they try to pursue that sort of lifestyle. And of course, this all led to music at the end of the day. And here's another question that I was really interested in. Specifically to the genre of music that you find yourself in, whether intentionally or not, it's quite underground and it's hard to get into in a sense.
Yeah.
At least in my case, I find that music needs to have like a certain twang to it to be called modern psychedelia or experimental or whatever you'd like to call it. Because it's quite an alternative portion or like a nugget of culture way to the side that kind of found itself emerging only around like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So that explains the modern and modern psychedelia. And I'm interested in the type of exposure that you had through your life and influences that you had in music to lead you to create these records that are genuinely unlike any other type in recent history.
Thank you. It's just quickly, it's really good to hear that, because I feel like I can say with a degree of modesty that I've sacrificed a lot to accomplish that. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there's so many opportunities that I had to be like all of my other friends that are really successful now. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
With that between
You're
doing
in the party. You're in the party with them.
part of that, I think has to be acknowledged that it's intentional, right?
Mm.
Like part of that is choosing to go to that place, right? Because when you go to that place, you often come back empty-handed or with burnt palms. Drug use was massive for me. I just have to mention that, like, it really was a
Mm.
massive factor for me. Like a part of like how I got to, so Broken Foot Rabbit Hole.
Yeah.
When Broken Foot Rabbit Hole was released, it was supposed to be the 12th Lalić album. When it came out, I took down the 11 that my first album I put up when I was 12. One influence was Bradford Cox and Deer Hunter.
Ah, I see. Deer hunter.
That was
I
really massive to me. I really gravitated to his kind of like intention and
mm,
proposed integrity. I don't know how much integrity he actually has, but as a kid, I definitely saw a lot of integrity in
mm.
how he carried himself and how he did his music. And it really was like inspiring to me. And one of those things was reaching into the vault. So like a
Mm.
lot of the sounds in my new records will be composed of a sample of something that I made when I was 11 or 13. You know what I
Ah,
mean?
yeah.
This kind of like, so I've kind of like, and a lot of this, like, I guess if I kind of have this vault, right? And it's like
Mm.
decompartmentalized ideas for lyrics and songs and things. And it's all just kind of in a big jumble and I kind of pull them out and kind of thing. If that answers.
I love the fact that you said that because I kind of feel like I'm going through the same thing. Sometimes you're playing something and you don't think that it has anything to it, so you just leave it to the side, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're trying to mix some lyrics into a new song that you created, and then you remember the sequence or the chord progression, you bring it back and it works perfectly.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
it's really nice the way that you thought about it, the vault, and you have to go in there and there's like, it's decompartmentalized. Exactly. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So Raneem and I were like looking through things and we had a deep dive, and obviously we know that Lalić has been around for a long time and you worked with some beautiful artists. So we were wondering, how did you meet Lucas George, Ruben Bloxham, and Liam Barton, and what eventually led to this unity in creating art?
Ruben Bloxham, it was actually Andy McEwen.
Ah,
Just
yes.
remember
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Andy's amazing. I have to give reference to Andy. Like, anyway, but so I pretty much stopped going to high school in the last year of school when I was 17, 18.
Mm.
And I started this band with other kids that were either not going to school or had just finished school. We call it Amanita. And it was kind of like in Melbourne, it became like almost like a gimmick. Like it was like, look how good
Mm.
these kids are. You know what I mean? Like, and we got introduced to all these older people and all this kind of stuff. And I remember we were really into Brian Jonestown Massacre at the time, and like, you know,
Oh, I
like
see.
this kind of thing. And so, and we were like really experimenting with a lot of drugs and stuff. And I don't know, it was a chaotic kind of time, but through that, I guess I've just kind of I think that because of that, I was able to finish school and be like, this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like
I
all
see.
cards in the
Okay.
table. I've got an in. You know what I mean? Like and
Mm.
from there it was like, I think that that really switched something for me, because prior to that point, all these records that I had been making were so personal. You know, like I was making them because I wanted to hear those sounds and I needed to hear
Mm.
those sounds and I couldn't find them, or I wasn't getting that feeling that and you know, and I'm trying to emulate that and making these broken records that mean a lot to me, but don't necessarily, you know, aren't created for other people. And I think
Yeah.
that part of that was this feeling that I always had as an outsider, you know, that like there was that, and I still carry that today, that it's like, I'm not going to
Fit
give
in.
you the energy to try and be part of whatever you don't
Mm.
want me to be part of, you know? So
That's perfect. Yeah.
but I think that at that point, when suddenly there was an in, it was like, I can make music for 4 people or something. And
Oh, yeah.
this is where I took everything offline and started writing Broken Foot Rabbit Hole.
It kind of gives you a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
That's
have a
amazing.
question. When we were trying to find information about you, I personally had to like take a deep dive because I listened to Portal. It's a very beautiful album. Okay. And when I listened to it, I was like, yeah, I have to know who this person is, who the person behind all of this is, because this is just perfect. This is like one of the best things I've ever heard. Um, so we had to take like a really deep dive, and we kind of like, it's like they were like puzzles, and we had to like stick the pieces together and everything to
Yeah.
find you. And I'm glad we did. But I have a question. Is like anonymity or like being like mysterious or something a quality or a factor that you consider, or are you like more interested in taking off?
I No, I'm not interested in mysteriousness or
Mm.
enigmaticity or anything like that. I mean, I honestly, like, I want to be part of history, you know? Like I want to, I don't care if like my life doesn't work out and I die unhappy, right? If I have a fucking Wikipedia page and someone's talking about me in a music documentary from 50 years from now, like that, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that's what I always wanted. I just wanted to affect the world, to like to, and not. I felt like it again, like going back to the School of Rock moment. It wasn't this feeling of like I need to do this thing. It was like I can do this. You know what I mean? Like
Because you can
it
do
just
so
all
many
started
things, and
fitting
it's
in.
just one of the, yeah, exactly. You can do so many things, and
Yeah.
it's just one of the, and you gravitate towards it because you love it, but it's not the only thing that you can do. It's not like the only purpose you have, because technically your purpose is just to affect other people in a positive way and leave the world better than you found it.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. Yeah.
I would say that on the to answer the question about anonymity, anonymity, that I gotta say, and I'm sure there'll be like people who are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but part of that is not playing along to the music industry mafia that runs
Yes, yes,
everything, and
because
not like, if you don't play along to their game, you will be anonymous. You know what I mean?
yes,
And
yes, yes.
your story will be a fractured puzzle that people need to put together. Because the only way that
Mm.
that can be collated is if the person who writes the check ticks the box. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah, because there's like a particular formula. It's like you release a couple singles, move out to LA, make a few friends with business executives, try to get a marketing campaign, and then that's like your starting point. And it's
yeah,
always like geared to make you as public as as like you're put on a pedestal and people look up to you and they look at every little thing that you do. It's like there's a formula, and if you don't follow that formula, then technically or theoretically you shouldn't be successful. But I
yeah,
don't think that that should be the case.
yeah.
The fact that there's now Spotify, Apple Music, and all these, SoundCloud as well, any artist can be in their house, have a home studio, record something, release it, and then find a huge fan base. And that means you don't need to adhere to a volatile fan base that expects something of you every year.
Oh, I mean, it's amazing. Like Spotify has changed my life. I gotta say,
Yes,
like, I mean,
that's
there's a lot of
amazing.
controversy about what they pay and everything, but and I got lucky with Spotify because someone who works at Spotify heard Fuck Love, really liked it and wanted to put it on a playlist, right?
Yes.
And because of that, I now get emails all the time. I
Mm.
get hundreds of emails a year from people saying how much they love me, how much it means to them, and that's, like I'll never stop being an artist because of that. That's enough for me. Like that's an amazing thing. But
That's
what I
beautiful.
will say though is that at the same time, these these structures are constantly being co-opted. You know what I mean? By the time that
Mm.
Spotify comes out as this revolutionary structure, it's already become a mafia. You know what I mean? Like I get emails from people, saying we're a PR company, we know someone at Spotify, you know, pay for this campaign and you'll get on Spotify, you'll get on this, you'll get on that. And it's
Mm.
literally like if you don't have that 4,000 euros, that's it's like sorry basically,
Yeah.
and like I think that those things do change, but I also feel like history is written by the victors, you know what I mean? And I think that like there's a lot, I'm sure around the world there's a lot of unsung artists that are doing the real heavy lifting of
Mm.
exploring things, you know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, the way you put it was perfect. Eventually, it becomes like a corporate, gigantic business that's run by a group of people in nice suits in a conference room, and it's really hard to get in there. Um, but I feel like if we were to compare the music industry, maybe now compared to what it was in 1980 or like
Oh,
1990,
absolutely.
it's way better than it used to be because there's more opportunities for artists like me, like anyone, like Raneem, anyone at all, to record in their house, release some music, and possibly find an audience. But it's just a way to express yourself, even if it's nothing, like if you're not looking for money, if you're not looking for a real career, just the fact that you have the ability to express yourself and that there's like you don't need to go outside and have CDs and mixtapes and give them out to people and hope that they're going to listen to your music. It's like it's better than ever.
I almost feel like there's this culture amongst artists to pretend like it's this unreachable, amazing thing that they do in order to preserve the fact that there's artists and non-artists. When I think, and then this
Oh,
creates this structure of people are trying to get record deals. They're trying to, all the stuff that you was talking about before. You know what I mean? And it's like
yeah.
that's I just and like we said, that changes so. I've seen the industry. I'm only 27, and I've seen
All
massive
sorts
change.
of things, yeah.
Like I've seen entire ways of doing things come and go, a few times over, and it's kind of like I I want to
It
make
gets
art. You
old.
know what I mean?
Yeah, you
I don't
just
want to
gotta
be
make the
a
art.
politician. Like, yeah,
Your songwriting is inspirational to me, really. I mean, when looking at any old record and when you analyze text, you can easily identify the start and end point of the process as a whole. You see the verse, the hook, the chorus, the bridge, they're
yeah,
all there for you to see. But I don't think that that's the case with your music.
yeah,
What's unique about the display of your lyrics is not only the content of the text, but it's the way that it's formulated. I like to think of it like I describe it as the type of poems I wish I'd examined in literature class in high school compared to what we did study, which was like the melancholic old timers reach for nostalgia that you constantly study.
I
So
didn't read
there,
any of that shit. I didn't read
yes,
any of that. Like nothing. I nothing. You know what I mean? Like no interest in
yeah.
academic arts or like learning about, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't relevant. It was like that's not what me and the people around me are, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah.
Which brings me to the layers of your lyrics, technically, because it has all types of nuances. And this is something that you mentioned a bit before, where there was like a huge range of interpretation, because it's technically a gamble. Like, no matter what I do, I can't really specify what it means to me because it means so many things to me.
Yeah.
And that's what's so special about it. So could you shed some light as to your process from, you know, the way you do things in finding a source to extract from and then write onto when creating a music or a record?
Yeah. One thing lyrically that I mentioned, and I this is like my hot tip for writing lyrics,
I'm
is
gonna take
that
my notebook out.
yeah, if I think or feel something that I can't say or that I don't know immediately how to say, that's a fucking lyric. You know what I mean? Like
Wow.
that's gonna be something, because when I figure out how to say that thing, I'm gonna feel the wave of relief of like putting the jigsaw piece into place, and it's kind of like that thing of like I was saying before, like things, their meaning comes to you over time. It works both ways.
As
You
you,
know what
yes, yes.
I mean?
So again, mentioning Portal, because this album, oh my god, you don't even know, you have no idea. It's so good. It literally like it hit too close to home. I feel like it's like definitely more unique than the rest of your work, or maybe that's like how I see it, or like how amazed I am by it, that I see it as like just like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever heard. This can't be compared to anything else, you know? So, what's your favorite album from your own creation? I really want to see like your own perspective about the things that you make.
In reverse order of release,
All
always,
right. Yeah.
always.
Wow.
I I won't I won't make a record if I don't think it's the best one I've ever made. Like you know, it's and I mean, part of that isn't like this has got to be better than this one. It's that I've got to think that it's better. Do you know what I mean? Like I've got to be there for it. I've got to be like, this is the new focal point. You know what I mean? Like I don't like to look back. If you look at my Facebook page, every album I've released, I pretty much posted the day it comes out, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I noticed that.
I'm done. Like I'm already halfway through the next record. I'm already on a new plan. I already don't relate to that anymore. I'm already a different person. I mean, Postmodern Gothic is my favorite album of the ones I've read, I think. But then you look at it the other way, and it's like, you know, I listen to Broken Foot Rabbit Hole. I can honestly say that that album is incredible because I don't know who made that album. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
don't know
yeah, yeah.
that person. Like,
Such a
and
different
it
person.
blows my mind. I can't imagine writing stuff like that now. I couldn't. Like I sit down sometimes on my guitar being like, come on, you wrote all these songs and you were fucking 16. Why can't you? And it's like, I'm not that anymore. You know, it's like, that's gone, I think. I just wanted to say quickly about Portal. I lost my mind making that album.
I love that.
When I was making that album, in my head, I was making the best thing that had ever existed,
It's
you
the
know,
best thing that
in
ever
all time.
existed.
And
You
that's
were
what was going on
successful.
in my head, you know, like, and after, like, I didn't listen to Portal until last year, pretty much, since it came out.
Whoa.
You know what I mean?
So
Because
that's like
I
5
just
years.
couldn't. Like when it was done, I didn't play guitar again for maybe 2 years. You know, that's when I
Wow.
started doing all the electro stuff, and that's when I started branching out to other projects because it was
Yes,
just
and Pretend
Venting.
Ranger.
Touching up about the Portal album, yeah, I'm just going to talk about it the whole time. Um, your hit song, "Fuck Love," I loved it with my entire soul. I can't stress this point enough. Everything about it, the progression, the lyrics. Oh my god. Anyways, I really want to know the inspiration behind it and the thought process, and like lyrically too, because it's just so
yeah,
amazing. Every single aspect of it is just awesome.
yeah. I think that, like, so I think like talking about it was a puberty thing. Part of it, I think, really was like this. The reason I called it portal was because I couldn't figure out whether it was the action of leaving an old life or entering a new one, and it felt like both and
Wow.
neither at different times. And like, so the fuck love thing was like, am I trying to move out of this kind of puberty into this more comfortable, less obsessive need, you know, for that kind
Mm,
of thing. But also at the end of the day, what that song is an exercise in hypocrisy, right? It's like an exercise in trying to exert control over something that you can't exert control over. And
mm.
that was the idea of the building of the song, was that like, the more you fight against this thing, the more you get worked up, the more you're like, I love you. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
no matter
yeah,
what
yeah.
you do, yeah, it's like, yeah.
Okay, so Raneem and I were doing a deep dive, and we were trying to find anything at all that could kind of give us an idea of who you are and like the type of person that you are. And the only thing that I could really come across in terms of like articles or interviews was an interview that you did with Vice in 2016. And I guess 2016 might not seem like a really long time ago, but it seems it's
It was
like
a long
things
time
have
ago. It
changed.
was also,
Things have changed
yeah,
massively. It's almost like it's a completely different world back then. We can't
yeah,
even compare it anymore.
yeah,
So we looked at the interview, and something that came across was you kind of like expressed some critique over the music scene in Melbourne and
yeah,
its inability to feel like a safe space for some musicians.
yeah,
So 4 years later, and with a lot more material released to your arsenal, do you find it difficult to feel comfortable and perform live shows with audiences and gigs? Like, you know, in general, the type of musician that you need to be, or the type of musician that you deserve to be, no matter who you are. 4 years later, do you think things have changed? And of course, I'm keeping in mind the pandemic, of course. We
yeah,
can't really get to live
yeah.
shows and things like that. But in the grand scheme of things, do you think things have changed since then?
I think that everyone will have a different answer. Like, even if I talk about Melbourne, and even if I talk about trans people in Melbourne, we'll all have a different answer to this question. You know what I mean? Some people maybe find it's gotten worse. I think it's gotten better. I really I really feel like we have seen results to an extent from that movement, and it's very interesting to see consequences of a movement like that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, I remember it so well, and I remember the intensity and the intention behind it. But it was also very intense and confusing times, obviously. I think a lot of things are better, but I also think that a lot of the narrative was co-opted. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is like, okay, I think that some things are better, but it's like, it was never a thing of like, we want to fix a problem, we want to fix a broken issue. These
There's
are
no way.
evolving concepts that we should all be kind of immersed in constantly, right? And exchanging and learning about and stuff, right? And I was very frustrated with this kind of like desire to come to an answer, to come to a definitive
Okay.
right and wrong and say, we figured out what's right. And now we just have to tell everyone who's not doing it, do you know what I mean? Kind of thing, to stop
It's
doing
not
it.
like it's not like a multiple choice question. There's no like one
Yeah.
answer and that's it. It's a constant struggle and a conversation that every single person needs to have all the time, every year, all the time.
Yeah.
Still a long way to go, especially when it comes to making safe space to people from the LGBTQ community, because apparently people are against human rights. Anyways, there's still like a long way to go on making safe space, but that doesn't mean we'll ever like stop fighting for our rights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And in general, I mean, people in general, no matter who you are, if there's something that's going on in your life that you feel that you're being discriminated against, you feel like you're not getting what you're supposed to be getting, then there needs to be a conversation. They can't just like let it go. And the
Yeah.
fact that there are things happening in the world, like Palestine, what's happening in Palestine, what just happened in Lebanon, you know,
Yeah.
things are happening around the world. And the fact that people just want to not talk about it and not,
Yeah.
they don't want to acknowledge the fact that there's a problem, and the first step to solving or at least conversing about a problem that needs to be at least resolved in some sense, or at least to get some understanding about it, is to just acknowledge that there's something wrong.
Yeah, like Raneem said, like, you're not going to stop trying to carve out that space because you failed or because something didn't work out, like it's like
Failed like 100 times already. We'll just keep pushing again and again and again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the cumulative effect of humanity, like that's this big thing that we're all a part of.
I feel like your fan base is like more of a community, like all of us together, we kind of have like a safe space. I stumbled upon Hex Loop on YouTube, and I was looking through the comments, and then someone was asking for the lyrics, and then someone replied to them with the lyrics and was like, here the lyrics. I texted you, I texted them, and this is what they gave me. So I feel like it's all like very comfortable, and it like because of its different perspectives and the different what do you call it, like how you perceive the music differently, people still, even with like their different perspectives, they try to reach out and try to find the lyrics, try to find meaning for the song and everything. It's very very nice.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's amazing. And I think that like when people, I get a lot of people asking for lyrics, and I think it is that thing of being like, okay, but what is the answer? You know what I mean? Like, or kind of like, okay, but like what, or like kind of like you check your answer against, like
Yes.
it's the same thing. Like I want to
Wow.
reach out to my favorite musicians and ask them about the true nature of some lyrics, that I've heard 50,000 times, songs that I could recite backwards in my sleep. And I still, like, I'm sure if they told me what they wrote the song about, I'd be like, oh, you know what I mean? And like have that kind of feeling. So yeah.
Wow, it's interesting the way that let's say beforehand, if you're a new musician in an industry, you need to be constantly on it. You need to go to live shows, make people know who you are so that you can actually get a fan base. And now you're sort of, as you described, you're like in a comfortable position, so you can not do anything for a year, release an album, and people would be on it. But if you look at your discography and you look at the time period between the albums, it seems like the time when people need to be on it compared to now where you're in a comfortable spot, the time between the albums is kind of short. The time between Post-Mortal Gothic and the one before was shorter than the other two beforehand, yet you're in a comfortable spot. And I feel like that comfortable spot allows you to be, I mean, this comes back to one of the questions that I wanted to ask, which is like the creative well. The fact that you can be so creative all the time and it's always there for you, the time period between the two albums and the amount of music that is in both of them, it seems like you had to work all day, every day so that you can get that sort of thing going, because it's just so much and it's in such little time. So I wonder how the pandemic and how staying at home changed things for you and allowed you to, like, how, let's say the pandemic didn't happen, would you have released Post-Mortal Gothic the same way you did with the pandemic happening?
There was a thing where Post-Mortal Gothic happened really quickly, right? And there was a period where it was pretty much finished and it was like ready to go. And there was like a few, this usually happens where there's like a few little last decisions or things to be moved around to me, but essentially, it's ready to go. And then I'm looking at this thing and there was just this thing in me that was like, I don't want to put this out. Like, I don't feel like, even though it's finished and it's what I wanted to do, I don't know, something was missing, right? And then when the pandemic hit and I looked at the record and it was just like that's, it really, it really entwined with the whole experience. Do you know what I mean? It really made me realize that like mortality was something that we were all going through collectively now. Do you know what I mean? Like in this way, and and I just mean like it really, I in that sense, not, that's not more of a music industry question. That's more of an answer in terms of like my own
Yeah.
thinking process. But if the pandemic wouldn't have happened, I think I reckon I'd probably have a band right now. I reckon I'd probably have released another album after Postmortal Gothic. There's a bunch of stuff that I probably would be doing, and I'm glad I'm not doing those things. I'm really glad. I'm really, really, really glad I'm not doing any of those things.
But I feel like in events like these, where it's like the whole globe is experiencing this, and there's a whole generation that's coming up with this thing that um, they've had these like gigantic experiences that no other generation say that they can have, and it allows us to learn a lot about ourselves, and not just me as myself towards myself. I'm saying us as in general, like my whole generation. If we think about it, World War II, the generation that came after that, they were kind of hippies. They had colorful shirts, long hair, gigantic mustaches. They used to, do all sorts of things. They were more experimental. And I feel like that sort of generation, they appreciated life more. They were able to appreciate things more because they understood what could happen. And
Yeah.
we're just, technically we're all like a second away from something really bad happening, so we might as well just live with a smile and really accept the things that are happening and just live as best as we can, because we don't know what might happen. And eventually I feel like our generation, we're going to learn a lot from this, and we're going to talk to each other more, we're going to have more conversations, we're going to appreciate each other more, we're going to love each other more. And it's bound to happen, because things like this, I mean, it gets scary. I mean, a guy from my bus in school, he got the virus, and something like that, you really think about like what can happen, and it makes you like just appreciate everyone around you and the things that have happened and the things that could happen. Because now I know, once this is all over and I can get to university physically, and you can learn in a class, it's the little things that you don't really appreciate. Now that I think about it, it's the bus rides that I really like, the moving
Yeah.
from one class to another, things like that.
Yeah.
That's what I really appreciate.
Big time. Big time. And I think I think it's going to be really positive. I really do. Yeah. And yeah, I can't wait to like do a million different things, that I
Yeah.
hated doing before. I hated doing, like and this is the thing why I love pandemic, because I love being in my studio and in my room by myself with no one bothering me for weeks on end. Like, that's amazing, right? Like, and I never have ever had the opportunity to do that to this extent, where someone physically can't come to my house. It's like I'm protected.
Yes.
The police are out there. They will arrest someone if they try and come to my house, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm ready to actually engage with life, like to see life with a bit of perspective, right? So yeah.
Yeah. What do you feel allows you to creatively articulate yourself so freely? I mean, it seems like you're really free. You really understand like things are going to be okay, and you're doing what you love. There's nothing really to worry about other than, the basic essentials of life.
I think that it's just like a lot of talking to people, and a lot of it has been me spending my life striving to figure out how to reach people, and striving to figure out different ways to communicate, and different and things that I wanted to hear maybe, and all these kinds of things. I mean, I'm not sure I have an answer for it, but I think that vulnerability is a big deal there, right? It's kind of like, I'm not worried that someone's going to misconstrue. Like, there's a lot of things that I said in this 2-hour period that I can imagine people misconstruing, you know what I mean? Or like, maybe
Yeah.
I should have been more cautious or thought more about my words. But I know that I feel like it's clear that I love you, the listener.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like that I care about myself and about you, and I care about, like, I think it's that thing of like, I know I'm flawed. So it's kind of like, why not explore that and just admit it and just kind of, so I feel, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I talk a lot, right? I like, as in, I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas, and
Yeah.
I have a lot of like epiphanies and click moments and big schemes and ideas and stuff. And I always think that they were bad 6 months later. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you
Mm.
always go out of that, but kind of seeing that cycle is kind of like, well, it means that I'm not waiting for the final true thing that I say. It means that everything is kind
Ah,
of true and false at the same time. And I think it removes that pressure of definition, right? Because definition just
wow.
kills us because we can't. And when we try and force to, we're pushing things into places they don't belong. And it hurts. Like, the three of us, I know by the way you're nodding, like, you've suffered from this specific fucking thing. It's awful. So I think that, you know, it's a good thing to overcome.
I can't stress this enough. You're an incredible person. You're so interesting. You have so much to say, and everything that you say, it clicks in my mind. And all I want to do is just listen to you forever.
I, this is like, this is one of the best conversations I've had this year. Like, already, like I've had an amazing time. It's like this, it wouldn't be possible without everyone involved. And um, yeah, yeah,
It's a gift to be able to speak to you honestly, because like genuinely your music, it connects to me and Raneem as well so deeply. And I feel like you can't have, we got this opportunity, and this opportunity is so rare because it's not like this is just any old musician that I'm able to speak to. This is somebody that I truly want to know about, that I want to know about, like, you know, the whole
yeah.
process. And you gave us so much, and I
Well,
can't help but
it's the
be
same
thankful
for me.
for it.
Though. It's
Sorry?
like, it's the same for me. It's like, this isn't just a normal interview. This is someone who actually wants to know what's going. You know what I mean? What I'm thinking.
Very
So
interesting.
it's like, that's amazing to me, right? Like, I'm as honored in this. I'm really honored in this opportunity, right? And that's why I feel like maybe I really wanted to take it seriously. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And to like try and I guess when you first messaged me, I really saw the potential to actually put heart into this, which is an opportunity you get rarely in this industry. You know,
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
combine journalism and heart. Like, I think it's so important. So I am I am beyond grateful to you guys.
It's honestly a gift. I can't call this anything else. This is a gift. You gave us a gift today, and it's incredible. And I'm just so thankful for this opportunity. The fact that you gave us as much time as you did, and we branched through so many topics. You didn't, you know, you gave us so much. There was so much to talk about. There were so many thoughts. And coming out of this, I'm gonna have 50 questions every second now, thinking of all these possible avenues where my mind can go. And I feel like genuinely, I'm a different person now. Like
Yeah,
things are different.
exactly.
Things are different now. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
the
I'll
fact
end
that
on
this
this.
came,
I feel that way too. I feel that way too.
and this is like,
What's
honestly,
going to
this,
happen when I close my laptop and look around the room after this call? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like awaiting that moment with this like pregnant pause. Like, I'm going to be alive after this call is
yeah.
done. You know, my life will begin.
And
Yeah,
I'm like, the timing of this worked out so well. I mean, specifically for me as well, I'm like at a point in my life where I want to hear someone. I want to listen to someone that really has something to say. And I feel like you were the perfect person for that. And everything that you said connected to me so well. And I'm sure that happened with Raneem as well. Like, it's so, it's just beautiful.
It's all perfect. It's all lined up perfectly. I feel
Yeah,
like this was meant to happen. Yeah.
yeah,
I guess so. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Um,
it's been absolutely incredible, and I'm so glad we did this. The fact that you gave us as much time as you did, and honestly, I wish nothing but the best for you and your career and whatever you want to do. If you want to retire now and just be an animator or whatever you want to do, I want you to be the best you can be, and that's just, it's the greatest gift ever to be able to be who you want to be and not have to worry about other
Terms.
things.
I like I couldn't do it without this right now. You know what I mean? Like, this is gonna sustain me, and I needed this, right? This is gonna turn my month around. Like, I swear to God, like, I was waiting for something like this to really like put my heart back in its place. And I'm just so grateful to you guys for doing what you're doing. And I hope you continue doing it to, you know.
That's the plan. We hope so. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely, this created what I hope to be a dream team, and it's going to go really well from here on. I hope so. Yeah. As well, I want to thank Raneem for this opportunity, because she brought this whole thing together, and she invited me on, and it's just so incredible.
Thank
So
you.
thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful month, a wonderful year, a wonderful life. Everything is, I hope you're immortal, and like, you know, everything works out the way. Yeah, it's like, I'm just so thankful. So I hope you have a great night.
Let's catch up in a few months.
Oh, absolutely. I would love that. I would absolutely love
like
that.
The three of us, we'll just get together. We'll be like, what's changed? What's new?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That would be so interesting. Yeah.
All right, cool.
So
thank you so much,
thank
guys.
you very much.
Have a great day.
Have a great night.